Okay. I love Marvel Champions. I hope you know that by this point in time. Through her journey of Marvel Champions and me covering it now for 4 years, 3, 4 years, however long it's been. It's favorite game of all time. I put it in my number one list, top list. Recently, and as in recently, I believe earlier today, yeah, it was earlier today, Fantasy Flight Games did an LCG fireside chat. And a lot of times they've done talks before, and we've never like watched the video and broke it down. But there's a lot of important information in this video. I'm going to link it down below. Please give it a watch. Please comment in the video your own thoughts because it may disagree with me. But I think it's important to watch even if you want to like get the full context of things and whatnot. Because there are some crazy changes that are about to happen to Marvel Champions. And some of them I get. I understand some. I understand where they're coming from. There's also some of it that like is very open-ended and not very well explained at all, which has me like kind of worried, to be completely honest, about the game. Not about the game, about certain choices they're making about the game. So let's jump into this video and take a look. All right, so this is the fireside chat. To the right here, I think you can see my mouse is Xander. He's kind of like in charge of like a lot of the media stuff and running like these shows and stuff like that. Jim is the head of studio, so he's kind of like the boss of these people. And we have Tony, who's now in charge of Marvel Champions, and we have Duke, who's in charge of the Arkham Horror side of things. So they're kind of just like introducing himself and talking and whatnot. And kind of early on, Jim's going to talk about the state of LCGs.
So. Yes. And to
And they're talking about
on the
delays right now.
expansion and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., that is only delayed in some territories. Many territories are still going to be seeing it
but it's
on
very
the
low
planned
delayed.
release date. But just depending on where you are, the United States being one of them will be slightly delayed. We'll work to get you all information on what the expected release dates are for your territories as soon as we possibly can. But until then, this is our announcement that there are slight delays on these.
So delays, not a big deal.
Let's talk about the exciting stuff here. You know, the living card games are going strong. Jim, what do you have to tell everybody at home before we get into the rest of this? Like, what's the highlights of this past year, 2024?
Yeah, I mean, I want to be very clear, right? I know there probably was some trepidation when they saw, oh gosh, we're talking to the, the head of studios coming out to talk about LCGs. What does that mean? I want to be very clear. LCGs are thriving for us.
Which is
the
good.
model's
Really good news.
important to us. We created that experience in the late 2000s.
Also, I love, just generally speaking, I like behind the scenes stuff when they do studio stuff. And you can tell right now Xander's either getting notes from his team or is reading chat because they currently have chat up and I know they get certain things. And I don't know how their studio is laid out. I always wonder if they have a giant TV of chat and like they're quickly glancing at it. But he's obviously either getting notes from his production team or he's reading chat right now, which is just behind the scenes baseball funny stuff to me.
We created that experience in the late 2000s. It's very much a thing we want to make sure that we focus on and have intentionality towards, right? We've grown our design teams. We've had a team in the studio dedicated to the specific.
And they have for Marvel Champions, which is really important, right? Even though we talk about getting rid of Caleb, Tony's in charge. He's got 2 other guys underneath him now. It's a team of 3. I don't think they've ever had like a full team of 3. Like they had other people guest appear now and again, but I don't think they ever had like a full team before. So that's really cool to see.
Focus of living card games.
Yeah.
And so we just wanted to make sure that before we got into any other deep dives here,
because it might start getting negative,
that we kind of alleviated some of the fears that might be coming up in chat that like LCGs aren't going anywhere. We love them. They're doing great. And you can continue to expect more of them from us.
So all good news, right? This is all pretty good stuff. They get into, we don't have to touch on it too much, around the 10 something mark. They kind of get into the history of LCGs, which is like kind of important or not, but there's a reason why they do this.
Worked, things like that. And so go back to circa, back the Wayback Machine to late 2000s. And we have an environment in which there's a lot of trading card games and the blind buy model and all of those things. And so the LCG model was really created in-house to talk about, to address specifically the idea of, the blind buy purchase model and how can we create a consistent experience for players and fans,
which is
that
good.
isn't necessarily about
LCG
pay to
model.
win or buying in the most, finding all the ways in which a TCG product model works. And the first, LCG brought in that concept very well, right? It was this idea of we're going to release regular content, but it's all going to be fixed content, so that.
And this is a model that I know everyone really loves, generally speaking. like I have the TCG side of my channel, obviously, and that has its dedicated fan base. But the LCG model obviously does as well because people like the idea of like, hey, I don't have to chase a card that's 7, 8 years old or just a card that's hard to get in general. I know where it's going to be, right? I know if I pay my $15, I'm going to get that card and a bunch of other cards versus I could pay hundreds of dollars and never get that other card.
Nobody feels like they're missing out. And that was, I think, still and will always be at the heart of what makes an LCG, right? That's some of the most important things that we have. It also
Also, really quick, what's funny with this is that this is kind of a different spiel than what they were giving when they did the organized plays, when they did the booster pack organized play. And I think that was more for promoting SWU than anything else. And I don't remember if it was Jim or not. It might have been someone else. And I was talking about, it's a living card game. Like, you should, like, feel like you're getting something new and whatnot, and like open booster packs and the excitement of like, you don't know what's going to be. And everyone in chat was like, that's not what an LCG is. Like, that's crazy. So, also, fun fact, now Xander and Duke are both obviously reading something, either notes or chat. I'm going to guess chat at this point.
it alleviates a lot of the some of the stress of how do you get involved with, it's supposed to be in a more accessible model, right? You feel like you can.
And they kind of lean on this, so they're supposed to be an accessible model. They kind of we'll skip just a little bit ahead of what the issue is with LCG.
It used to be
moving
Mythos
forward.
packs at $15 a pop, and you could.
So they're talking about when
very big
Arkham was really
unwieldy,
popular.
Right?
They had
Like,
Mythos
we can
packs,
go
which,
into
like,
recent Arkham.
which they had like 6 packs. So you had like a big box expansion. They had 6 packs after the fact. It's kind of what Marvel Champions does now. This is how Arkham Horror was. It caused a lot of issues. Same with Lord of the Rings. They're not going to talk about it, but Lord of the Rings had the same exact problem, and it caused a ton of issues, especially when there were certain key cards in Lord of the Rings packs that you like needed that one card. Sorry, really hard pack to find.
Where we had, it used to be Mythos packs at $15 a pop, and you could, but then it was, here's a deluxe box and 6 packs to tell your story. And we realized in the discussion,
Now talking about the new model.
What happens when a store has, the deluxe box, pack 1 and 2, pack 6, but nothing in between, right? It stops them from being able to actually, it stops players from being able to continue their story.
Now, this is actually a really fair point, and this is something that a lot of people struggled with in the community. Not if you were up to date on doing everything. Like, if I was collecting everything right now, it wasn't that big of a deal. But a lot of people in the Lord of the Rings community, especially, but Arkham as well, they would get packs like, for the Grey Havens or whatever, they'd be missing like pack like 5, right, or 6. There was one hard one to get in there. The Dread Realm had a couple hard packs to get in there. And it's just like, you were trying to chase this one pack out of the set. So I get their argument that it caused a lot of difficulty. It caused a lot of barriers for players to get into the game because they were missing this one pack. I mean, that logically makes sense to me. I'm fine with that argument. I don't like the lesson they take away from it, but it's a fine argument and it makes sense.
Kind of breaks the play experience. And so we tried to address some of that with the way we repackaged all of the content, kind of brought them into these bigger experiences. But that's really kind of a Band-Aid fix, because long term, as we just continue to release products over and over and over, it means that we end up with for stores, it's very difficult to stock everything.
It's called the internet. Like what he's about to go into this whole thing right now. And I get that they have this thing where they put their small stores first and foremost. And I get it. You got to take care of your stores and they do a good job. And you can do that with all the current new product. But they're going to use this excuse that you can't do it with the old stuff. And maybe we just won't make any of the old stuff anymore, aka Captain America, Doctor Strange. Maybe they allude to it weird. We'll get to that in the video in a minute. That we're not going to focus in on that stuff. But it's too much for a store because they're not big enough, or it's a lot to handle for a store. It's called the internet, right? Amazon can handle it. Like, let's just call it what it is. Amazon can handle it. It's honestly sounds like you all don't want to print it, and they will get into that, which is kind of interesting.
There's still a lot of, and the bigger that catalog becomes, the more space they have to dedicate it to if they're going to run the line.
Amazon has space.
And from the player side of things, imagine walking in as a brand new player now into Arkham Horror Marvel Champions and seeing just a wall of content and products that you can buy. Where do you start?
You promote your content creators. Like, I understand why Fantasy Flight Games feels like they have to address this problem, but they don't. Like, it's literally why companies work with content creators. Right? It's literally why companies do it. The video game industry has figured this out, that they have thriving wiki communities and Discord communities that they support and that they help out, but they let their community take care of it. And what they do is Fantasy Flight Games will say, not Fantasy Flight Games, but other like video game companies will say like, hey, if you need a starting spot, go to this community page, right? They will take care of you. You offload the work. I am free labor. They don't pay me anything. I mean, they give me early access now and again to some cards. It doesn't cost them anything. It really helps them, if anything. You offload the work. That's how you fix that problem. Do you know that question was asked so many times on the Reddit page that now has 20,000 some members on it, that they just have like a bookmarked section that says, start your collection here. What to buy next. Like, it's there. I have a video and it covers it. Nelson has a video. I think Villain Theory has a video. Most YouTubers have a video. I don't follow much on the blog side of Marvel Champions. I don't know how many blogs exist out there, but I'm going to guess they have posts about it because that's what the community does. If you go into the Marvel Champions Discord, people will help you out, right? And I get the idea that, oh, well, not everyone has access to the internet and whatnot. Okay, if they don't have access to internet communities, they're probably not going to be deep in this game and care about where to start. They're probably just going to start playing whatever they feel like, right? A lot of times people kind of get peer pressured into buying everything, and that's how we do it in most communities, for better or for worse, I get. But when he talks about this, they're trying to solve a problem that they don't need to solve. That's literally the job of content creators. We are here to help you because we love the game. It's as simple as that. All the content creators on YouTube, and there are dozens of us now for the Marvel Champions space, will do, if Fantasy Flight Games came to any one of us and said, hey, we have a problem with this. We need a really good video that's structured of how to play the game like turn by turn with the new rule set. They say, here's the rule set. Could you do us a favor and make the video? We'll do it. We'll do it. Are you kidding me? Any Marvel Champions content creator would be happy to do that. If they sit there and say, hey, we need a buyer's guide and we need help making the graphics really good and we can't really spend any time on it, but we can give you the assets, like just like the JPEG images or PNG images or whatever. Please make it really, really good for us and just run it by us. We're going to do it, especially if they feature it on their page. Like, they don't need to do this. This is not something that they need to worry about. Offload the work. Get the free labor. I want the views. I know Nelson would want the views, Daring Lime, Web Warrior, Villain Theory, everyone else. They don't want the views. Well, how about?
How do you know what to do, right? You can go to communities, and y'all have been doing a great job of making sure that we're guiding our new players through these experiences. But what happens when they don't know those communities exist yet?
Then you tell them. Problem solved. Problem solved. You put in the box. Yeah, you have to promote a community. You would have to do that. And that might be like kind of weird, especially for some companies, because they're like, we don't want to take a risk because there might be brand issues. That's how you fix the problem, though.
How do we help new players?
Your social media.
The game? And as we looked at the history of living cards,
your website. There's so many ways. There's so many ways, bro. There's so many ways. Social media is the easiest way. I get that you can't put it on your box or in your rule book or whatever, even though some companies do. If you look at like Stonemaier Game stuff, they just say, go to Watch It Played and watch our videos played. Because, I mean, we all know Rodney's pretty brand safe, right? And I get that you might say like, D20, maybe he's not brand safe. Okay, that's not to be me. That's not to be me. But I'm sure there are communities out there that you could continue or consider brand safe, right? And again, if not, put it on social media because you can just scrub your social media account later on if need be. All right. If people love a game enough, they will check the internets. They will check your website. They will check your social media pages. That's how you direct them. I mean, that's how we direct anyone anywhere.
Card games. We realize this has actually been a problem since day one, and something that we've never really been able to truly figure out how to solve. It's always been the problem that as a game continues to be successful, as these two games certainly have, we continue to see it be more and more difficult to draw in new players. And realistically, if someone were to try to come into either of these games right now and be like, I'm going to go and buy everything, the amount of money you're investing in that kind of breaks the accessibility part of our promise.
But that shouldn't be up to you. Like that kind of annoys me, to be honest. Like, I get that you want to be accessible. And the way you be accessible is keep things in stock so I don't pay scalpers. That's the accessibility, right? To sit there and say like, well, they shouldn't buy all of our old catalog because it equates to a lot of money. That's my decision, right? You're taking that decision away from me. And I'll be honest, that kind of like frustrates me as a person, as a player. I should be allowed to decide where my money goes. You are supposed to keep it accessible by keeping it accessible that I can go buy the thing. Because when we went through this with Nightmare packs and Lord of the Rings, when all of a sudden there was a huge rush on Nightmare packs, and they were like, some you could find some places, not the other places, and they were selling them for $100, $200 a pop. And instead of saying, hey, you know what, we're not interested in printing them, but we're going to let Games Enter or somewhere else. I don't know what, it could be Games Enter, it could be makeplayingcards.com or whatever website. I don't really care. We're going to let them use the assets so that we can keep it accessible. They didn't do that. It's not about accessibility. That drives me up a wall.
For LCGs, right? And so we have had to kind of come back around for what is like, how can we address some of these issues, right? And I think that there's things that come around from the product side. I think there's also some things that enter into this space from the design side. I think there's a lot of these
design
things where
side
we started
conversation's
to really dive
interesting
in
too.
as a studio about how can we think about keeping it breezy and light for players to keep coming into the game and finding new players and bringing them on board, while also maintaining the expectation.
Also, I got to back up about the accessibility thing. If you're in for the game from the beginning, you're still paying the amount regardless, right? Like $500 is still $500, right? $500 spread out maybe is easier to swallow, but you're still paying $500. Just sorry, I can't get over that.
What the LCG model promises for all of our fans who've already adopted the model and are playing these games regularly, right? And so that's really, I think, these are two of the things that we've started to look at and come together with, and ultimately it led to the decision that we need to start to retire some of
I think right now people start freaking out.
our products.
As they should.
This doesn't, of course, mean that, we thought about, do we want to do a new edition, right? But that, of course, it invalidates everything that you had. We didn't want to do that.
And this is a fair argument by them because this is, I think they'll mention it too. This is something they did for Game of Thrones, which for me who jumped in the second edition, it was great. For people who had all the first edition, they were like, I have to rebuy the same thing all over again. Like, I get this point. Like, I think this is a fine point that they're making. I understand it. I know there's a lot of people out there that want like a second edition of the game. Like that's tough. That's a tough ask for, look, I can afford it, sure. But to make me basically rebuy the same exact thing over again, like that's a lot to ask from your consumer base. And because you know that they're going to. And this is the thing. The reason why he knows this is such a big ask is because he knows that people are completionists and they pretend like they're not a little bit later, which is like a weird way of doing things. And we'll get to that. But because people are completionists, you can say like, hey, you really don't need the second edition stuff, but you know people are going to get it. So.
Right? These are great games with great mechanics and tons of design space that we can continue to explore. And so that didn't make sense to restart a new edition.
Which I still think
that's
is a good
something we
choice.
may have done in the past, right? We've done that with an LCG before with the Game of Thrones one.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to make sure that what we were doing was something that players could, all the stuff you have, continue to play with it. New players, they don't have to worry so much about finding out all the old stuff.
I don't know how well they know their old players, and they get into data, which is kind of interesting. So we'll see what it says, but it would be fascinating to see the sales stats on this. Somebody that got into the X-Men stuff, do they go and pick up the old stuff? Right, this is the question we talked about in this channel all the time, and they do get into some of the, they get into talking about stats without showing the stats, so we can't really see what it is, which is, I mean, they're not going to show the sales stats, but it'd be still interesting to see regardless. But basically, their contention a little bit is that if anyone got into the X-Men stuff, they don't care about the rest of the stuff. And they even make comments like, we see people that say like they want to get things, but it's so few people that it's negligible, which is, I don't know. I mean, they say they have the data for it, maybe.
And
it just seems crazy to me.
We started to talk about that idea. It started to crystallize across the studio of ways that can benefit not just the players and the stores. It also somewhat helps the design side and being able to free up some space for them as well.
they're going to get the design side of things. We're going to pause during that too because I don't understand their logic with this, and maybe it's because I'm just not smart enough to get it.
So I think
Which
this
is totally
probably
fair.
a good time for us to, I mean, talk about what that meant on the design side for you to be able to have that new space to think about of like, oh, we're going to retire stuff. So I've been monologuing for a bit.
Jim, do you want to talk about what it means to retire? I
Yeah.
don't think
Oh,
we
yeah,
really
of course.
addressed
Absolutely.
So they
that.
get
no,
into
you're
this, which is
absolutely right. See, this is what I love about live streaming is that you have people around you can kind of help you along with some of those
Chat
things.
will
That's
yell at you
fun.
constantly.
So
They probably
I
read
think
that in the chat
what,
screen.
what we mean is that some of these products are over time going to be out of print, right?
Now, this is the big scare for everyone that I've talked about in my channel. It's like, there's no way they're going to let Captain America and Doctor Strange stay out of print. I might have been wrong, like very wrong about this. They might just let it go out of print. Now, Tony's going to hedge this slightly, and it's a very weird comment that he makes. I wish he would kind of like go into more detail on. I don't think he really
Right?
does.
We have, we've been doing a very data-based approach. This is part of, again, why we've been spending the last couple of years actually talking about and figuring out how this works and making sure that
This
we're
is the
making
data
the right
stuff they talk about.
decisions based on the data that we have. And so we noticed that there's a lot of kind of front-loaded sales, of course, when we launch new products, right? All of you all are
Makes
going out
sense.
and grabbing all the new stuff because you're
We love
excited
it.
to play
Keep
with
selling.
it.
Keep
And
making.
then
Keep
obviously
printing.
the back
Keep
catalog
taking my money.
sells over time, but it really starts to diminish the amount of demand we actually see in the market. And I know that's some.
So with this is fascinating is that they see some of the back sales over time, but still diminish greatly, which I mean, it would be, right? It had to be a certain percentage less. So you'd be able to calculate it, right? So like if you let's just say had 10,000 units that were sold, and then the first thing of the X-Men wave sold 12,000 units, are you selling 2,000 old units there of just from there? But that's also not including new people that are coming in. So I mean, these numbers must be crazy low of people that were just not interested in wave one whatsoever, which again talks about every time I mean, whenever we talk to community about getting people into it, they always say like, yeah, I want to start with the early stuff because I want to see the design process. I want to start with more simple stuff. Like I picture right now getting novels into, if you've been watching our streams with 2Player, getting her into like the more complicated stuff with the X-Men stuff. She has not enjoyed that compared to some of the older heroes where they are simpler, right? And I don't want to say they're bad. They're not bad at all. They're just simpler. She's enjoyed that a lot more compared to the new stuff, which I am sure she's not alone on this. Like I am almost positive she is not alone on this. So they're gonna sacrifice all the older stuff because it's so few people buy it. But I think they're alienating base there because there aren't people that are so into the game like we are. They
Sometimes it's
just
hard
aren't.
to see
It's
the
a
difference between like,
tough
well,
heroes
but
to
there's
get.
a couple of people who really want to get that piece, that one product that's out of print. But the reality is
I think
when
it's
we
more than a
actually
couple.
go and find, do an analysis of what that actually looks like, we're talking about not enough to even sustain a printing.
Which is crazy. Okay, so let's say a printing is like 5,000 units, right? Which, okay, I want to know how they're capturing this data because are they just saying like, okay, it's stores we talk to and how much interest is brought up? Because if the people don't know it exists, they're not going to talk about it. Like, is it wish list items on Amazon on their website of Asmodee? Like people that wish to be inside, like they haven't ever done a thing where it's like, hey, do you want to know about this in the future or whatever? Like, click here. Like, it's very hard to find that button on Asmodee I just mentioned. Like, most people probably don't even know how to find it, right? If you went to their website, it would just say out of stock, and you click and it's just out of stock, and that's it. But there are ways, I believe it's on the Asmodee shipping site. Actually, I don't even know if it exists anymore. You used to say, like, let me know when it comes back in stock. Do they have that data? Like, how are they gathering this data? Like, that's what's really kind of curious to me on this. And I'm not saying that, like, oh, their data's all wrong. I'm sure it's right with what it is. But if there's no way for people to easily, like, tell you what it is, like, you're either getting it from people wishlisting on Miniature Market, I assume, maybe, or on Game Nerds, maybe, or from your store's word of mouth, maybe. Like, that's the only way I would know how to do it. Like, I feel like there needs to be a better collection system where why don't you just have an open Kickstarter or GameFound type thing? I don't want to say that necessarily. And then when it raises a certain amount of money, you print it. Then we'll know. Then it's transparent. Everyone knows.
And so we have to, we've done in the past where we've said, well, let's trigger our minimum quantities that we're going to order anyway in the hopes that we, down the line, even though we know it's slower, maybe get there. And I think that hasn't proven out to be great. And I think this is a
And if not, then why are there so, like, how many older Marvel Champions products are there to find right now? Like right now, if I looked on Amazon, so now looking through Amazon really fast, okay, we have all of our new stuff, sure. And then we have, okay, Green Goblin is older. Okay, that's fine. Vision's a bit older. Okay, Nebula, Spider's a bit older. Valk, okay. Hulk, that's over. That's not new stuff. That's old stuff. That's why it costs so much. Rise of Red Skull, okay. War Machine, like Captain America, there's nothing for. Sinister Motives, there's nothing for. Like we're missing a ton of product on the website that's not even listed anymore. So, oh, and Spider Ham's there. So I mean, we're looking at what Ant-Man. Wait, did I even see Wasp? No. So there's no Ant-Man. There's no Wasp. There's no Quicksilver. There's no Scarlet Witch. Like there's so many things not there. So it did sell out, right? Maybe it took a long time, but it sold out. And this is just Amazon.
A model that helps us really, really find where all the demand kind of up front gets met, right? I think it's important. A thing that I think we talked about in the prep for all of this was the idea of if you're a current player who goes out on day one and buys everything when it comes out, the purchasing for you is going to change not at all.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So yes, so some products will retire, will be out of print. And then part of that actually is about retirement, which actually, Tony, I want to kick back to you to talk about what does it mean to be retired as a product, as content in the LCG space.
Sure. So one of the things that we have to grapple with is that over time, as products retire, they're not going to be available to people. And so any cards,
which again is a decision that they're making, right? It's not, that's a decision that they're making, that there are cards that will not be available to players, right? That's not a problem that would normally happen if you keep things in stock. I just have to point that out for a second.
Scenarios, any heroes, any investigators in those products will no longer be available. So what we are going to do to tackle that issue is we are going to establish what we're calling the current environment, which includes all of the current products that are being produced, minus anything that is out of print. So this will be the core sets for each product and the last 2 to 3 years worth of products for that game line. And then everything else and the current environment will be grouped together in what we're calling the legacy environment. So I want to emphasize up front that everything we design going forward is always going to be backward compatible. So you'll still be able.
So they're still talking about how, like, even if you have like the new stuff, it'll still work with the old stuff and whatever. But that's not this whole argument he's going to make. Not argument. His design space thing doesn't 100% make sense to me. And I'm going to chalk this up to me not being smart enough to understand it. Is that they're basically going to sit there and say that you have the current environment, which is the past 2 years. Let's just say 2 years, just to make it simple for us. And then things outside of there aren't going to be like within the design space forefront, right? So they're going to, get rid of cards. I guess I'll talk about it in a little bit.
Use your new stuff with your old stuff.
It's easier
Like,
if he
if
explains
you've got the cards, you can play with the cards.
right? And they don't want you to think that
exactly.
you're not going to be able to play with your old stuff,
But
which I don't think is really people's
we
concern.
Have designs that rely on certain player cards from past packs that have gone out of print, then we need to bring those back into print. So
they're gonna reprint
what we're going to
cards.
be doing is doing more reprinting of select cards that we think are very important to the game line.
Which again hurts the people that have been collecting the card game the whole time, right? Like they bring this up several times, like they don't want to like hurt those people, but that's who it hurts.
There may also be opportunities for us to let certain cards that are perhaps above the curve, that are too powerful and become too ubiquitous in the player card pool, go into retirement. So,
Which this also doesn't make sense to me. Okay, so this argument gets thrown around a lot on my YouTube channel, even, or different videos and whatever, that, oh, if a card is too strong, just don't play it. I've never liked this argument, right? Like, I've never liked this argument. Hey, if life is a little too easy, you know what? Just take half your bank account and throw it out the window, right? Just like, why are you trying to make life so easy, right? Like, if the tools are there available for you, like if you're building a house and you can build a house really fast, you're like, man, this is really easy to do. Your solution shouldn't be like, hey, just get rid of your power tools so it's harder to do. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like the tools are there, you're going to want to use the tools that are there. So I think what's interesting is what they're admitting to in this design space is that there are cards within Power Creep that are too powerful, right? This is probably the Nick Fury dilemma, really. The Nick Fury card for the base game is too powerful. It's too good for what it is. And so they want to kind of like fade that card in the sunset. But so much of this community talks to each other. Like this works in a vacuum, I think, but because we talk to each other, people are going to go on Marvel CDB and be like, man, I'm really struggling with whatever hero. Well, a lot of people are using this Nick Fury card. I wonder what that is. And they'll be like, oh, I can't get it. Now, obviously you can get it in the core box, which, so it's a little bit bad of an example, but they're going to be like, oh, I can't get that card anymore because it's out of print. So then you're going to want to search for that card and you're going to overpay for the card. Right, that's just the direction we're going. So they want everyone to live within this 2-year bubble of design space, which if you keep the pattern going, it doesn't 100% make sense. We'll get
Newer
into it in a
players
second.
don't have those cards kind of skewing their deck building, whereas players in the past can still play with those cards in whatever scenarios or decks that they like.
Yeah.
We will also be opening up the opportunity for us to improve on past cards that came
Which
out
you could
just a
still do
little
anyway.
not good enough to actually see
Right.
play.
You could do that.
We can
No one
redo
cares.
those cards.
Just do it anyway.
Basically, either under a new title or under the same title with revised text.
I'm not
in a way
100%
that
sure why
makes it
this
more
is like
playable without
a
feeling
concern
like
or a
we're
worry. Like
constituting
just
a power
make the
creep
card
past content.
new anyway. It doesn't matter. No one's gonna be upset
There
about
are
that.
also opportunities on the scenario side, and I'll let Duke talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely if we look at it as
Duke's
if
reading
we're
that chat
designing
right
around
now.
a smaller set of cards or a smaller card pool, especially in something like Arkham LCG, where we really aim to give players sort of a knife's edge, a razor's edge of difficulty. It enables us to sort of balance in a different way and to kind of create a more curated experience without taking into account every single card that's been created.
They don't want to balance the game anymore for every single card that's out
It
there,
also gives
which is
players maybe who have joined the LCG a little bit after the core set was originally put into the world. It gives you more of an opportunity to play the game as it was when it was first released. With a smaller card pool, you might not be able to trounce Knight of the Zealot in the same way that you can with a larger card pool.
And again, that's something that the
So
community make a
that's
decision of. You could
definitely
just
a
buy
good
old stuff
design
and
or
buy it in
or-
release order.
or,
Like that could still happen
positive that you can
anyway.
take from
The,
this
the
as well
argument,
on the
Yeah.
design side.
There has been kind of a tendency in the past when, for these cooperative LCGs, when every product is always available, to tend toward making scenarios harder and harder and harder because they have to keep up with the player card pool as it develops.
Yeah.
By introducing the current environment, which is what we're going to be primarily balancing around, we can have a more even power level on the player side so that the scenarios can remain accessible and winnable by players with card pools of all sizes.
which okay, so I get what they're saying, right? I get what they're saying, but I don't understand how this logic holds water all the way out. So they are basically saying we're going to take the current environment of 2 years, right? And we're going to balance everything within these 2 years so that, you don't easily destroy things because we accidentally made things too powerful in the past, whatever. Doesn't matter, whatever. And there's going to be, that's eventually going to fall to the legacy side of things, right? Like eventually that's going to go into retirement and then you'll have a new 2 years. But in order for that new 2 years to exist, it's got to be bounced off the old 2 years, right? Like time doesn't happen in chunks. Time happens over time. So as the first year drops off, that next year, that third year, is going to be balanced off of that second year, which was balanced off of that first year. Are you not just having the same thing? Like this doesn't make any sense to me. Like it literally makes no sense to me. I get what they're saying if you look at it from like, okay, if we go into this 2-year period, we're going to have everything make sense for that 2-year period. And when you go over to this 2-year period, it's all going to make sense. I get that. But as time progresses, like the third year, right, which is the new first year of that next set, is going to have to be balanced off the second year, which is based off of the first year of the first set. Like you're going to run into the same exact problem. So I'm not 100% sure how you balance it differently and not get power. Like you're going to get it. I don't know. They're just saying like every 2 years we're going to have a difficulty reset where like the game like basically becomes really easy. like overall, and like your player cards become really weak, I should say, like overall, and then we're gonna slowly build up at the 2-year mark or 3-year mark, whatever it is, and then we're gonna drop off your player cards again. Like, is that the strategy? Because that's kind of what it sounds like.
There are plenty of options in both Arkham and Marvel for increasing scenario difficulty. So even if you have everything and are playing with your most overpowered Doctor Strange deck, you can still find a challenge by tweaking the difficulty in the ways that the game allows.
Which we already have
Is,
that.
I think a great
So I don't
overview. So I know we have some questions
I don't
from the chat
understand
that
that's
I've seen
different.
already.
Really quick, we have to cover one last thing. There's one last thing, and I'm not gonna do much more in this video because you should go watch the video and whatnot and make
Questions
your own
from the
opinions
chat that
about
I've
things.
seen
but-
already and some different pieces
They're reading
here, but I wanna
chat and
talk
stuff. It's like,
specifically about reprints. I know that we talked about this before.
We
You
got-
mentioned
this is the one last thing
reprinting
I'll mention.
specific cards that people like, but obviously with both Arkham Horror and Marvel Champions, there are characters in both that people really identify with and feel this strong attachment to.
Captain
Is there a
America and
possibility of
stuff.
revisiting some of these
Valkyrie.
in the future once they're out of print? Thinking of like,
So they're acknowledging that they're going to be out of print, right? That's the underlying theme right there from Xander, that it's going to be out of print. So can you revisit it? And this is an interesting
a
way Tony is
specific
going to be
hero or
responding
an
to this.
investigator. You're like, has always been my Arkham Horror person. Can I have them again at some point?
Arkham does a decent way
We've
of doing
actually
this.
had something like that in the LCG in form of like parallels and abilities to revisit or visit investigators in multiple different forms. So
And are
honestly,
they gonna
like,
bring this
looking
to
at it with
Marvel
this
Champions
more
side of things?
ephemeral mindset, it gives us more opportunity to revisit characters and revisit concepts.
I think this is
that,
a good thing for
should
Arkham and
hopefully feel really
could be
exciting. It's really exciting to
for
us.
Marvel Champions.
Yeah, and we'll be doing the same in Marvel, but we are going to be doing revisits of heroes. We're not going to make minor changes, tweaks around the edge, and then reprint the same kit. We want to give you a brand new experience with Captain America or Doctor Strange or whomever we are designing for, so that you feel like as a long-term player that it's still an exciting product for you to pick up and for you to get these heroes back to the table, even if you haven't played them for years because their other version came out 5 or more years ago.
For sure.
So this is a massive point made by Tony right here, and I think it's interesting that there's 2 ways to read what he's saying right there. Okay, there's 2 ways to read what he's saying. One is that they are going to reprint Captain America, Steve Rogers, as we know it, right? They're going to reprint Doctor Strange as we know it. And they're going to make giant changes to their kit. Not small changes, giant changes to their kit. And this way they'll be more like up to date, right? Spider-Man Peter Parker is going to be like the new version of Spider-Man Peter Parker. And it's going to be much different, much more well balanced. Maybe that is one way to read it. The other way to read this is that they're going to be doing updates to the hero itself, like Black Panther. Is Shuri Black Panther the new Black Panther that he's talking about? Right? Are you not going to get a T'Challa Black Panther, but just a Shuri Black Panther? I predicted that Sam Wilson Falcon's going to be coming out. Is it really going to be Sam Wilson Captain America that comes out? And that's going to be the new Captain America moving forward. Not Steve Rogers Captain America, but Sam Wilson Captain America. Is that what he's saying? I don't know. I could really read that kind of either way, and only time will tell. But that's going to be interesting to see how they approach that moving forward. All right, so next they're going to talk about this kind of big thing of what is out of print, right? Is Captain America gone? Is Doctor
copy
Strange
every single thing
gone?
I see because I'm like, I don't know when this is happening. What can you all tell the players about when to expect any changes that they like or that come along with this?
Yeah, I can start with this. I think that obviously not everything. We want to make sure that we are being smart about how we print products. We talked a little bit
good.
about we had some data that showed how long something being in print really continued to meet the demand that was out there. And so we're not all of a sudden where everything that's on the shelf right now is going to be out of print, right? We look at everything to roughly 2 to 3 years is what we want.
So this is X-Men. Like that, just so that we understand, 3 years ago is about X-Men material.
It to really live in market. That shows the data that we have shows that that's
2 to
kind
3
of the
years.
best.
Maybe a little bit of the
best kind
spider
of
stuff.
timeline to make sure that we're supporting everybody. So and the new players who coming in that time still get access to that content. So I would say that if you were prioritizing going and finding stuff on your store shelf, it is the things that are as we looked at in terms of reprints. What is currently, I know we know that Captain America and we know that Doctor Strange are that like we know internally, and now we're confirming here. I know there's been a lot of speculation. Those are currently out of print in terms of products. Those have been in the market for a very long time, and the demand is.
If you go to Reddit or Facebook and you let them know, you go to my community and you tell people, they will straight up say, like, I am just waiting for these last couple of things. I am waiting because I just got into this game because of X-Men and I'm buying everything up. It's been really hard. Guess what? Nope. I am shocked. I am truly shocked and baffled by that.
Is not there to be able for us to be able to justify that, and so I think you're going to see a similar pattern arise over time, where that will be from start picking up your older heroes or your older campaign boxes and investigator packs, as those will be the first things to go out.
So again, as we kind of mentioned, I don't know if the future now is going to be they redo a Steve Rogers in the future, or it's going to be Sam Wilson moving forward. Right, we just don't know what it's going to be. Is Sam Wilson going to be the new Captain America that we're going to most likely get this cycle, and he's the new Captain America, and Steve Rogers you just never get? Or are they going to do Steve Rogers again?
But we keep that window flexible because we again want to make sure we're reading demand properly. If something is absolutely selling out every time we do a printing, we want to make sure that we're getting more of that out, and maybe
Feels
it
like
takes
Captain
longer for
America
that to
did.
happen over time, but. We want to be really cognizant that, again, we don't want to keep a giant wall of LCGs constantly in one space, in this huge space that's intimidating. It's really important for us for that. So don't buy everything, although stores want you to buy everything right now.
No, you should.
But, I mean,
if you love the game, you should buy it.
The reality is that it is really about picking and choosing. Not everything's going away on day one.
And just because something's out of print doesn't mean it won't be available in stores.
100%. Yes, that's a great point. Absolutely.
I mean, but it does, right? Like if you're watching this video a year later and the store hasn't been able to get its print selection back, you're not getting it. So it kind of does mean that. All right, I'm not going to get into the rest of the video because there's some more in there. This video is way too long at this point. We could talk about this on a live stream at some point. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy to me that they're not going to reprint Captain America. I feel like I really thought they were going to. I don't know. So yeah, so we'll see. It really comes down to me what the future is of Steve Rogers, Captain America, Doctor Strange, right? Like, are they going to redo Steve Rogers, Captain America? Or are they just saying, no, Sam Wilson is your new Captain America moving forward? And that's it. Like, same way how Shuri is the new Black Panther, right? T'Challa, sorry if you really like him, you're not going to see him. Well, you're going to see him in the core box. But generally speaking, a hero like that you would never see, right? Like, Ant-Man, Wasp, Hulk, just not going to see these heroes anymore. You might see like Red Hulk and that's it. You can never get Green Hulk again. Like, I don't know. That's crazy to me. So watch the rest of the video. There's some other interesting stuff they talk about. Again, I don't want to like take their entire content and make a video of it. This video is already way too long. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. Let me know your opinions. Put it down in the comments. Go watch their thing, like I said. Do me a huge favor if you have not yet. Make sure to hit the like button, hit subscribe, all that fun stuff, and I will see you all next time.